Fragile X syndrome, Stella Yun, Biology 9A. What is a Fragile X syndrome? It is a kind of genetic syndrome which is a disability caused by problems of genes and chromosomes. It is one of the common cause of inherited mental disabilities. Fragile X syndrome is also called a Martin-Bell syndrome because Martin and Bell first described this disability in 1943. Cause. Now let's see what causes Fragile X syndrome. In our body, proteins are needed for brain development, and DNA is needed for proteins because it stores the information of how to produce proteins. When it has problems in FMR1 gene, which is part of DNA, our body makes less or no protein. Therefore, lack of protein causes Fragile X syndrome. In this picture, the part with yellow arrow is FMR1 gene. The second picture is the picture of chromosome when there is Fragile X syndrome. As you can see, right picture is male and left picture is female. The part marked with an arrow is where the chromosome has fragile part, which is also FMR1. Fragile X syndrome has various ranges of symptoms. It depends on the degree of change in chromosome. There are two kinds of mutation, which are pre-mutation and full mutation. When there's a small change in chromosomes, we call it pre-mutation. Females are usually not influenced by pre-mutation in behaviors and educational abilities. However, it still makes impacts on males. Full mutation is when there are more changes in chromosomes, which makes more serious symptoms on both male and female. There are several kinds of symptoms, and the first one is physical symptoms. The patients have larger head than normal people. Also, their ears are large that it may project away from head for some people. For males, they can get macroorchidism, which is having large testicles. These facial symptoms usually happen in males over the age of 10 than under age of 10. So if you see the picture, the boy at the top has big ears and the man in the bottom has large and long head. The upper pictures are the childhood picture of these two men under it, so we can see that facial symptoms usually happen after age of 10 more seriously. The next kind of symptoms is behavioral symptom. Children with Fragile X syndrome are usually sweet, loving, and has good sense of humor. On the other hand, they are not always acting nice. Fragile X syndrome patients, especially young boys, are way too distracted and impulsive. Sometimes children chew on their skin or other objects such as clothes. Also, people get hypervigilance that they feel anxious about changes near them. Third is intellectual abilities. Patients are cognitively weak, which means that they cannot think, solve problems, understand the concepts, and progress information well. Therefore, they have a sort of mental retardation. Some of them are on the IQ borderline, which is 70 to 84, and some are less than that. And pre-mutation patients have some normal intelligence. Even though they have some learning disabilities, they are good at some skills. For example, boys are usually good at visual matching or memorizing, and girls are usually good at vocabulary and comprehension items. Lastly, there are some daily symptoms such as eating, dressing, and sleeping problems. Many boys cannot control how much should they eat, that they fill their mouths with a lot of food. Also, children like to eat food with their fingers than using spoons or chopsticks. Dressing problems happen because of their muscles. They can have low muscle tone that they cannot put their arm or leg into the closed sleeve easily. Moreover, some patients have disabilities in sleeping patterns. They might fall asleep easily and wake up at night wandering around the house, or they might wake up too early even without an alarm clock. For adults, they will have difficulties to use transportation money and make friends. Then how can we detect Fragile X syndrome? If a child is late than other normal kids at behaving, learning, speaking, or etc., you should check if he or she is affected by Fragile X syndrome or not. Also, there will be some facial changes such as large ears and long face. However, it's not a good way to detect because facial symptoms occur after the age of 10, so it might be late. When you're pregnant, you can have prenatal testing, which checks if your developing baby has this syndrome or not. You can have a DNA test to check if your FMR1 genes are working fine. Lastly, you can check your family history of Fragile X syndrome, like this picture right here. If a mother has this syndrome but father doesn't, there is 25% of chance that their child will get Fragile X syndrome, and it can be more serious if it passes from parent to child. What about the treatments? Actually, this syndrome has no absolute cure. People are still researching on some critical areas related to DNA, but the actual cure is still unknown. Yet there are some therapies. Patients can get educational, physical, and behavioral therapies to cure some of the symptoms. Moreover, emotional and educational support of the adults, especially parents, can be a big help. For the last, there are some further informations about Fragile X syndrome. There is more chance of males to get this disorder. 1 out of 3,600 men and 1 out of 8,000 women are Fragile X syndrome. This is my works cited, and thank you for watching.